everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily show YouTube channel. The best way to support the show on this YouTube channel is to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and or share it with a friend. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode in whichever way you choose to support the show. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. I hope that today's message and episode brings some bit of positive change to your life. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily show. I am your host, Emily Hayden, and you are joining me for a solo episode today. I have a lot of different things that I want to share with you guys. So to me, it kind of feels like a very random podcast. I quite literally have 3 different books inside of my, or on top of my table that I have here. And there's just different things that I want to share. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of an update on just me, some things that I've been experiencing, and then just share some of the things that I've been reading that I feel like have really just impacted me in a positive way. And maybe not everything here will help you, but maybe one thing from one book will really speak to you. So what I like to do at the beginning of every single month is I have this calendar that is on my fridge downstairs, and it's a little like whiteboard type of calendar. So I love it because every single month at the beginning of the month, I wipe the last month off. It's gone. It's in the past. We're letting it go. And we're moving forward with a fresh perspective and a fresh opportunity to do a great job for the whole month. And by doing a great job, I just mean just showing up for yourself fully and making sure that your intentions are matching your actions. This is something that we talk about a ton in my Evolve X program, also my Evolve X Worldwide mentorship program, just about, taking each month as that kind of using that new year energy where everyone gets really excited for the new year, but utilizing that every single month and often every day too. So like I said, what I do is I write out everything on the calendar. So I write out all of the big things. So for me, the things that I'll write on my calendar are either little dates that I'll have, like I took my stepmom out to dinner. So I would put that on there, or my sister had a date with her. My dates are my family right now. Just FYI, there's a little peek into my love life. I'm dating my family and Jesus. So I'll put little things like that. Or if I have a podcast interview, I had 2 this week and I have 2 or 3 next week. Then I'll, put those on there, just big things that I'm looking forward to. Something else that I've been putting on there is when I do jiu-jitsu, because that's a new hobby that I've decided to dedicate 3 times a week to. So I go 3 times a week. And I go ahead and I put it in the calendar there so that I'm committing at the start of the week or the start of the month. I'm committing to those times. And the reason why that's important for me is because, again, it's just a hobby for me, but I believe that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And the classes I attend are in the morning and they're early. And there have been many times now where I wasn't strict on my bedtime, so I didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I just didn't sleep well or whatever it was. And I could have very easily skipped. I'm not in a competition prep. I'm not, prepping for anything. Like there's nothing and no one making me do this. But I choose to practice discipline because discipline is something I've worked really hard to cultivate in my life. And I don't want to start making excuses and just slacking in any area of my life, because truthfully, once you start allowing just a little bit of leeway, you start slacking here and there, it ends up pouring into the rest of your life. So it's important for me to write this down to where I can see it on the whiteboard, because then I know come hell or high water, I am going to be at these classes. And so this morning that actually happened, and I woke up, I was still dreaming while I was brushing my teeth. Like my eyes wouldn't even open. I was so tired, and 0% of me wanted to go. There was 0% motivation. But another tip that I have for you, if you're having to wake up early like that, is do not set your alarm earlier than you have to. Because I know for myself, if I do that, then I'm like, okay, I can sleep for 10 more minutes. And so I just you lay there for 10 minutes and then you're even more tired, and it's even more build up to when you just have to get up. Whereas when you set the alarm to where you have to get up as soon as the alarm goes off or you're going to be late, it gets you right out of bed. And even if you're not happy about it, even if you're still dreaming while you're brushing your teeth, you get up and you get going. So kind of a long explanation just to say that that's one way that having that big month-long calendar helps me. But also I just kind of think about, okay, what are my intentions for different goals that I have in my life? So for myself, I'm like, okay, what do I personally need? Because I know that I'm taking care of the business. The business stuff is all mapped out. I know when my coaching calls are, I know what progress I'm looking to make in my coaching business and my podcasting and how to optimize those. But personally, what is it that I need? And sometimes I'll write out an intention in the form of a word, and other times I'll write out intention in form of just like kind of what I'm needing. So for example, 1 month, and I think I've shared this before, 1 month, my intention was no. And no is a complete sentence, ladies and gentlemen, as one of my friends says. And I really just, I needed to say no to things, because I definitely, if there was a scale, I lean on the side of people pleasing, and I've had to do a lot of work to kind of come away from that. And it's really hard because I don't like disappointing people. I don't like not showing up for people, but the truth is I can't show up for hundreds of people and myself, and I think it's really important that we all protect our own personal space, our mental health and sanity. And sometimes we need to say no, not because we have something else going on, but because we just need to rest, or we just need that time for ourselves. And that's okay too. So, my intention for that month was no. And because I set that intention, then throughout the month when things would come up, I would say, oh, this month I cannot, I'm not going to be able to do that. Or thank you so much for the invite, but I won't be able to do that this time. I look forward to maybe a next time. So, this month, one of my priorities was building community here in person. And my overall focus was just in my spiritual journey. I really wanted to pour into my spiritual self, my faith. I wanted to grow, and I wanted to build community in that way. And because that was my intention, when it came to a Sunday, I decided to try a new church. And honestly, I was really resistant with trying it. I shared a little bit about this on my Instagram story, but I kind of feel like I'm more comfortable talking about it to my podcast listeners, because I just feel, not that it's uncomfortable. I feel like you guys are great, and you guys you're here for it, and you're accepting of these things. So I haven't had the best experiences with church. I've had great experiences, but I've also had really uncomfortable ones. And especially just being alone and going and like putting myself in these situations, it's just kind of like uncomfortable when you're alone and you're like, is this going to suck? Are they going to like pour me some juice? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about communion. I mean like metaphorically drink the juice kind of thing. Anyways, so I wasn't particularly excited about it, but because I didn't have motivation to go really, my motivation to go was actually the fact that I knew that my whole goal this month is growing in my walk with God and growing in my faith and surrounding myself with a community of people who are doing the same thing, who can really help me grow and to cultivate that in my life. So I went a little reluctantly, a little like, okay, God, please help me to just be open to this. And I go. And what I ended up experiencing was just one of those treasured moments in my life where I experienced and felt the real tangible presence of God and of the Holy Spirit. And I've gone to a lot of churches. I've tried a few different churches here in Houston where it was a good message, it's good worship, but to me, I'm like, there's not much depth kind of thing. Or maybe it just, I don't know. I just started to think, maybe it's just not for me, because I understand gathering together is important, but like, I really want like the deep stuff. Like I want to go in, I want to, I want my whole soul exposed kind of thing. Like I want to experience God on a real level, and nothing was really hitting for me. And I think it's just that I wasn't in my church home. And I think for depending on where you're at in your journey, you'll connect with a different group of people, maybe a different church. So I think for a lot of people, places that I visited is perfect for where they're at. And it's so helpful and so life-giving to them. And that's beautiful. And I think there's a place for that, but it just wasn't really clicking for me. And I think it's okay when things are just not clicking for you. You don't have to explain it to yourself or to other people, but I would encourage you to not stop trying. And I think that's kind of just the message I want to share is don't stop trying. And maybe it's in relation to faith and trying church. If this is like a direct message to you, that's awesome. I hope you can use my experience as inspiration to keep trying. But whatever it's, whatever it's bringing up for you, maybe it's love, maybe it's friendship, maybe it's going after a goal like your pro card or like getting into a business school or something. Don't stop trying. And if you have a bad experience or if you have an experience that kind of feels like a failure, it's okay. Like use it, learn from it, and maybe you understand everything that you don't want in a relationship, in a business, in a church. And that's okay. That's useful information. It actually goes into the useful bin. You can put that there. But don't stop trying. I just think about if I had been closed off or if I had been like, you know what, church just might not be for me. It just might not be for me. I would not have experienced what I experienced on Sunday. And it was just such an incredible moment in my life where, like I said, I experienced the real presence of God. And when you feel that, guys, it's so much peace. Like words will never be able to describe how peaceful it is and how it just sets everything to rest. Anything in your mind and your heart and your soul that was just going like a crazy storm inside of your head, whether it was anxiety or depression or worry or all these things that, affect all of us, all of that ceases to exist in his presence. And so sometimes we feel like we need direct answers to whatever it is that we're experiencing, or we feel like we need a direction, like go left or go right. And the truth is, a lot of the time, we just need to get in his presence, because even if there is a storm around you, just like a tornado, how there's a storm, if you get to the center, there's peace. So there's always peace available in the storm. The storm doesn't have to be over in order for you to experience peace. You just have to find where that center of the storm is for you. And for me, I experienced it at this church, and it's just really cool. This church is one that they allow the Holy Spirit to move however he wants to move. It's not a like cookie cutter service with like, we have to end it exactly this time. Like they're just very open to allowing it to be whatever it ends up being, because that's how it works when you're allowing God to move, because God is real and present. He is here on earth. He's not this like random thing that you believe in that's so far and that you just come to like practice and do this thing that has no depth. That's not really what it is. Like when God is invited and welcomed and people allow his spirit to move in the present, you can't plan for it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you can't plan for it. And when you experience it, there's no question. Like nobody in there is questioning what's happening. It's like, this is God's presence. It's so clear. And it's just, I live for it. I felt myself sitting there like, I don't want this moment to end. And so something I wanted to mention with that too is, before I had that moment, I think one of the reasons why it was just even better for me is because, and I hope it's okay, I'm going really into depth into my spiritual walk right now, but basically, you guys know, I love God. I love this journey that I'm on with him, and it's been so incredible. But I go through periods and seasons where I'm not feeling that incredible. I'm not feeling that connected. And it sucks. And I just remember praying and journaling leading up to this Sunday service, which I didn't plan to go to it. Like the day before, I was like, I don't want to go to church. I was like, oh, let me just try a new one. And I went. But leading up to this, it had been a while since I had felt God's presence. And my faith is something that I seek to grow in and to experience every day. So I do things that will help that, like reading and worship and prayer and stuff like that. But I haven't felt his presence like that in so long, and I haven't even felt connected, and I haven't even felt like he's been talking to me. Like I almost felt like this like little bit of distance, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Why won't you just like show up for me, speak to me, make me feel connected? Like, I know you're here. I know you can hear me. And so with perspective, looking back on that little, like, I feel like it's like a dry season for me, because I don't feel that high of being connected to God, the ultimate source of life, which is just the most incredible feeling in the world. I look back on it and I'm like, okay, God's thoughts and his ways are higher than my thoughts and my ways. So could there be a reason why maybe there was a little bit of that disconnection? And, I'll never say that I know things like for sure, but I think about this too. At the beginning of the month, I said I wanted community. I said I wanted people that would help me grow in my faith. And here's the truth. If I had been on one of those faith like highs where I'm feeling super connected to God. He's speaking directly into my life, and I'm getting that from my quiet time and from being alone, which I'm alone in my faith all the time. I have phone calls and stuff with like my dad or Amy or friends like that. But my faith journey is really alone, to be honest. And so if I was getting that from my alone time, I 100% would not have gone and tried that new church. I would have slept in, and I would have been so happy and excited to do my things and have time with God alone. So how just smart and how good and how caring of God is it that maybe he allows that space, maybe he allows me to not be able to do it on my own, because he knows that we are meant to be in community. That's how he created us. And he knew that if I was starving in my faith, if I felt starving like that, he knows my heart. He knows I'm going to seek it. And he knows I'm going to continue seeking it, trying different churches, trying different things until I find it. And then I go and I find it, and I'm like, funny how all of this kind of ties together, where at the beginning of the month, I wanted community. I wanted to grow in my faith. All of a sudden, I'm feeling really disconnected. I'm not being able to cultivate that on my own. And then I go and I find this community of people that are so hungry for God and are so open to allowing the Holy Spirit and God to move in their lives in just every kind of way that he wants to. And now, how cool is it going to be to be able to have that group of people? And so that was just a really cool little journey that I just recently went on, and I felt like I wanted to share it because I feel like there's so many takeaways from that. Whether all you took away from that was to set your intention at the beginning of the month and make sure during the month that everything you do supports that, or, it's to try again with church, with faith, with God, and to recognize that if you do have those like dry moments, that maybe God's calling you deeper. Maybe he's calling you to something else, and just some encouragement to seek it. And I'm really glad that I didn't stop trying, because again, experiencing God's presence, those are the best moments in life. In those moments, you need nothing else. You are fully satisfied, like fully fulfilled, so peaceful, so joyful. It's just you and God, and it's so incredible. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope that's okay. Let's see. Okay. I want to share some different book readings that I've had. I'm reading 3 different books right now. So the first one, okay. So this is kind of random, but I was gifted this book. It's called The Meaning of Marriage: Facing the Complexities of Commitment with the Wisdom of God. It's actually torn, so I promise I can read, but it was the cover's torn. I was gifted this years and years and years ago, and part of me is like, I should have read this earlier. That's besides the fact. So there's a part in this that is just, oh man, it's so true. And I want to share this with you guys, and then kind of maybe share my thoughts on it. So The Meaning of Marriage by Timothy Keller. And then this is actually on page 55. So it says, repeatedly, Paul shows that love is the very opposite of self-seeking, which is literally pursuing one's own welfare before those of others. Self-centeredness is easily seen in the signs Paul lists. So you know you're self-centered if you are impatient, irritable, lack of graciousness, lack of kindness in speech, envious of others, holding past resentments and hurts against others. And it says, in Dana's interviews of divorced couples, it is clear that this was the heart of what led to marital disintegration. Each spouse's self-centeredness asserted itself, as it always will. But in response, the other spouse got more impatient, resentful, harsh, and cold. In other words, they responded to the self-centeredness of their partner with their own self-centeredness. Why? Self-centeredness by its very character makes you blind to your own while being hypersensitive, offended, and angered by that of others. The result is always a downward spiral into self-pity, anger, despair, as the relationship gets eaten away to nothing. But the gospel, brought home to your heart by the Spirit, can make you happy enough to be humble, giving you an internal fullness that frees you to be generous with the other, even when you are not getting the satisfaction you want out of the relationship. Without the help of the Spirit, without a continual refilling of your soul's tank with the glory and love of the Lord, such submission to the interests of the other is virtually impossible to accomplish for any length of time without becoming resentful. I call this love economics. You can only afford to be generous if you actually have some money in the bank to give. In the same way, if your only source of love and meaning is your spouse, then any time he or she fails you, it will not just cause grief, but a psychological catastrophe. If, however, you know something of the work in the Spirit in your life, you have enough love in the bank to be generous to your spouse, even when you are not getting much affection or kindness at the moment. So I kind of want to recap what I just read there and kind of explain it in my own words. This is really giving a big contrast to relationships that have God as number one in their own individual lives before their partner, and how when you have that and when you allow God to fill you up, it said internal fullness. You have this internal fullness. It's like your cup is all the way filled up and you're not looking to somebody else to fill up your cup. When you have that, then you have what the love economics refers to. You have something to pour out so that when the other person is being self-centered, instead of responding in your own self-centeredness, you're actually able to give generous mercy, grace, patience, kindness, all of these things that you gain from your higher power, from God. Yet when you don't have God at the center of your own individual life and you place another person, like a significant other or a spouse, as, the number one thing in your life, and that's where you gain all of, your happiness from, when they fail you, it's not just a disappointment, but it says a psychological catastrophe. And you guys, I've experienced this so many times in my life, and it's just so vitally clear that in order to have a relationship where you can both have a position of self-sacrifice, you first have to position yourself underneath your higher power, underneath God, underneath what is the source of your happiness, of your fulfillment, of everything. Not one person can ever make you feel fully fulfilled. And if that happens, you have to ask yourself, what happens if that person leaves, if that person isn't there anymore? So it's just so vitally important to your individual health, to your spiritual health, to your relational health, for you to develop your own relationship with your higher power or with God. And it was such a big realization for me. And it really just put into words things that I've experienced in my life. I've been somebody else's everything, and it's so much pressure, and it's a pressure that nobody can ever fulfill. I could never be successful at being somebody else's everything. And so to those of you that are listening, that maybe you're dating or you're thinking about dating, it's not just, when you're looking at somebody to date, I think it's so incredibly important that they have their own individual relationship with God, and that is their source. And you can identify that pretty quickly when you're talking to them. If you just speak to them and you ask them questions, and just, ask them some open-ended questions like, how does faith play a role in your life? What does that look like? What is your relationship with God like? What is something God showed you recently? And really try to understand their relationship with God. And I think it's so important, because if they lack that, I think a lot of people try to justify it by, just respect each other's beliefs and differences. And you should respect each other's beliefs and differences. But if you really want a relationship that is going to have a solid foundation, I think it's so important for you to align in that way. So I just wanted to mention that because I felt like it was a really good lesson. Hey everyone, just a quick interruption from today's show to let you know that there are multiple ways you can be involved in the Evolve community. There's Evolve X, my premium mentorship and coaching program. There's Evolve X Worldwide, an entry-level mentorship program. And now there's actually a way to directly support the Evolve with Emily show podcast. All of those links will be down below. I just wanted to mention them. So if you haven't checked them out yet, please check them out for more information. And without further ado, let's get back to today's episode. The next book is actually called, How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole. She's the holistic psychologist on Instagram. I found her when she like had not many followers at all. And I was like sharing her stuff like crazy. And I noticed she started getting into like the health and fitness space. A lot of us were like reposting her and she, you know, she's put out such incredible content. Like that's why all of us reposted her, and I'm sure many other industries too. But she's awesome. She's a psychologist that teaches you how to do the work. Hence the book. Okay, so this is actually near the end of the book, and it's in the chapter of reparenting. So she discusses how to reparent yourself. You know, a lot of us have been through a lot in our lives. Some of us had great parents, some of us had a mixture, and some of us didn't have a parent figure in our lives. And, you know, one of the biggest things is not allowing whatever your experience was, not allowing that to dictate your future. It affects you. It has definitely affected you a lot in the way that you operate and your patterns. But what you can do is just recognize where you're at and say, okay, so why don't I be the parent that I needed? Why don't I do that for myself right now today? And it's on page 220, just in case anyone's reading. And it talks about how to do the work of developing a reparenting menu. So there's different key areas of your life that you can reparent yourself. And so I'm just going to discuss a few of them in some examples of how you can do that. So emotional regulation. As children, many of us were not taught the value or practice of being emotionally aware. As adults, it's crucial to our healing that we develop this practice. You can begin cultivating emotional regulation by, and here are the examples, practicing deep belly breathing, witnessing the sensations that different emotions activate in your body, noticing what causes you to feel emotionally activated, allowing emotional responses without judgment, allowing any and all emotions to pass through you while simply witnessing them. This is incredibly important because, like it says, a lot of us, you know, we were never told how to handle our emotions. So when you realize that you are not your emotions, you can instead just become an observer to your emotions. And I'll have to say, as somebody who's really into personal growth and development, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff. I get interested and curious. Like when I notice that something is agitating me, I'm not just agitated and act out of that. I feel agitated and then I go, I wonder why I feel so agitated. Where is this coming from? Does this have deeper roots than what I'm really realizing in this moment? And I get really I nerd out about figuring out what the root of it is, you know, because you may think that you're agitated because your friend said something that's agitating. But when you really look deeper in it, you realize that it actually agitated you because you have some sort of, you know, personal background or history with the term that they used, or with, you know, I don't know, some sort of personal background to what they said, or maybe they reminded you of somebody and you're not even realizing it in the moment. I remember a really hard situation that I had where someone really acted out on me as an adult, and I just don't do that. I don't know. I don't act out like that or scream at people. Anyways, if I scream, you better run. That's all I have to say, because I don't do that. But this person was emotionally reacting to me like crazy. And I, you know, anyways, handled the situation. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, what is this feeling? Because the confrontation didn't bother me. But when I walked away, I could tell something inside was really bothered. And instead of just being frantic and driving my car away, whatever, I sat with it and I was like, where is this coming from? And it was so quick. It was so quick. As soon as I just asked myself that question, the answer kind of came in my head and reminded me of a moment in childhood that I have not thought about in a very long time. And it was only because I was open and I really wanted to know the truth of what the root was that I'm experiencing. And it takes a lot of practice and work and self-awareness in order to do this. So I don't expect anyone who hasn't done this before to be able to just identify things that quickly. Oftentimes you need somebody else to help you, or it takes some reflection or journaling or something for you to be able to really do that for yourself. But I've done a lot of work, so I feel like it becomes easier for me to start becoming more aware to these things. And I will say there are also times in my life where I'm fully aware that I'm not aware to what's currently going on, meaning you know, I feel so self-aware on one end, but on the other end, there are times in my life where I feel almost kind of stuck, you know, And I'm like, I know there's something that I'm not aware to, and I can't see it. It's a blind spot. I need some outside guidance. And, that's why it's really important to have wise counsel in your life. And there's a lot of scripture on it too, where it says, basically just, it's really important to have wise counsel in your life. Like if you want a good life, make sure that you are in the counsel of multiple wise advisors. And so I really seek to always have that in my life, in different areas of my life, in faith, in life, and finances, and relationships. And I, really, really vet those wise counselors. But when you do have them, that's what really helps you, because they can really easily see that blind spot. So that was the emotional regulation. Next one is loving discipline. As children, many of us were not taught simple, helpful, supportive habits and rituals. As an adult, you can begin to cultivate this loving discipline by keeping small promises to yourself each day, developing daily rituals and routines, saying no to things that do not serve you, holding boundaries even when you are uncomfortable doing so. That one's really hard. Disconnecting and spending time in self-reflection, my favorite. Clearly stating your needs in objective, non-judgmental language. Man, that one's hard too. Like actually stating your needs to other people. The keeping small promises to yourself and developing daily rituals and routines. I practice a lot of this in my own life, and that's what my EvolveX program is founded on as well. And it's just, discipline is so important, because just like we talked about at the beginning of the show, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And a lot of people, they were never taught. So some people just need the loving direction and guidance of cultivating discipline in their lives. And this is a few of the ways that you can do this. I really highly suggest that you guys get this book if you don't have it yet. It's great, especially if you're not able to work with a therapist or a counselor or something. This is kind of like the do-it-yourself guide. So I really suggest you guys get the book. I read it all the way through, and I'm reading it again because it was so good and I was so interested in everything it had to say that I didn't really retain much. Like, meaning I know that I read it all and I got it while I was reading it, but I read it so fast because I was excited and I wanted to read the next thing, that now I'm going back to really sit with it, to digest it. And, that's something that I actually want to pause and make a point about. When you're reading something, whether it's a personal development book, whether it's the Bible or a school book, you can read through it and that's great. But I think where wisdom and experience comes is when you really sit with it, to digest it, to marinate in it, and to go deeper. Like if you're willing to go deeper with the stuff that you're consuming, there's deeper wisdom and there's more layers to whatever it is that you're pursuing. So, if even, guys, this could even apply to like social media, seeing some sort of like headline or something. You could take it at face value. I don't suggest it. Or you could look at it. You could do your own research. You could talk to other people. You could, research it some more and find multiple sources, multiple different sources. And by doing that, then you can have a better understanding of what it is that you're looking at. So whether it's a news article, it's a Bible verse, or it's a personal development book, don't just take things at face value. If you really want the depth of what is actually there for you, then go in and go all the way in. Do everything that you can. Pick apart one word and look at the meaning of the word and look at different ways to use the word and the roots of the word. And there's just however much or however willing you are to go in, that's how much you'll get out of it. Whatever you put into it is what you'll get out of it. TED Talk over. Okay. The next one, there's two more. Self-care. As children, many of us were not taught the value of things such as high quality sleep, movement, nutrition, and connection to nature. As an adult, you can cultivate this self-care by going to bed a bit earlier, cooking and or eating a home-cooked meal, meditating for 5 minutes or longer, moving your body for 5 minutes or longer, journaling, spending time in and connecting to nature, allowing the sun to touch your skin, connecting with somebody that you love. And there's plenty more self-care things that you could probably add to this list, but this is such an incredible list, a good starter list. If you guys want to try out any of these, maybe, I want to mention the quality sleep thing. A lot of people are laying down at night and then they get up in the morning, but they're not actually getting quality sleep. You guys, quality sleep will change your life. And I meet people all the time. They're like, oh yeah, like I'm working so much and I like don't sleep that well, but they don't have discipline around their sleep schedule. And I think while self-care could be quality sleep, this quality sleep should also go into the self-discipline section as well. Because if you can get really disciplined about your sleep, it really will impact your life. A lot of people, and I put myself in this category for years, man. A lot of people are walking around at the 60% version of them, totally overworked and strung out and doing the best that they can. And they feel okay because they don't really know any different. But man, when you start to optimize things in your life, even just as simple as sleep or getting your water in and getting some movement in, you will operate and think and function and show up completely differently to all of the responsibilities in your life. So I really encourage you not to place insignificance on these things, something such as sleep. It is so important and significant. And if you guys hear Vinny, he is being a little restless right now. He's in the studio with me. Hi, Vin. Just a second. Let me just grab him. Okay. He's in my lap. All right, Vinny, you want to help me finish this episode? We're almost done here. It's thunderstorming and he hates the rain. I told him, Vinny, we've lived in Texas for a few months now. It's also been raining every single day recently. You are going to need to get used to this. Your little cutie pie is so cute. I wish, oh, wait, YouTube can see him. I was like, I wish the podcast listeners could see him. I totally forget that I'm on camera as well. By the way, if you guys ever want to watch an episode, I don't know if the solo ones are nice to watch because it's just me. Well, today it's me and Vinny, but check me out on YouTube, guys. I have a whole YouTube channel for the show. I'd love to see you there. Anyways, okay, we're going to get to the last one here. The last one, childlike wonder, creativity plus imagination, joy and spontaneity plus playfulness. As children, many of us were not taught the value of taking joy and spontaneity, creativity, play, and pure presence. As adults, it's crucial to remember to play, to connect with, and develop hobbies we enjoy. You can cultivate this by dancing or singing freely, doing something unplanned, finding a new hobby or interest, listening to your favorite music, complimenting a stranger, doing something you loved doing as a child, connecting with friends and loved ones. Man, I don't know about you guys, but this was the area of, personal reparenting and work that I really had to implement into my life. It was like the number one area. And I think everyone, just by listening, you can probably identify which section you need to really pour into and focus on right now. And I mean, I would love if you guys would create an intention for the rest of the month to focus on one of these categories in your life. And then, by looking or hearing the examples that I gave, implementing that into your daily routine, and then see how much it impacts your life after just a month of you doing these things. So for me, I was on my own by the age of 16. I was working multiple jobs, putting myself through college. At a certain point before I got back to Texas A&M, I was living out of my car, and I was just in survival mode for so long that I didn't know to play, and I didn't know to, do any of these things that are just more, to me, it's like self-love, dancing and singing and finding a hobby and listening to your favorite music, these things, it opens up a part of you that I think is just so essential. If you are lacking creativity, I would ask you to look at your week and look at how much you're working and how much you're in that like work execution, operating at that fullest, just work focused. If you're work focused and, results focused, it's great. It's important, but you have to have a little bit of that playfulness, of that joy, of the space to just let that part of yourself out. I remember one example is when I was in California, I did something called, I believe it's called disco at the beach. No, silent disco. That's what it is. Silent disco, where you put the headphones on and they're wireless headphones. You have a group of like 30 people and you're all listening to the same playlist at the same time. And it's crazy music at the beach. There's so many other people that are not involved in the silent disco. They don't hear any music and they're literally watching you dance. And at first when I started, it was just like a little like, okay, I'm just going to like, I'm here to have fun. So I'm like bouncing my shoulders. But like the more I got into it, the less I started to care about what other people were thinking about me. And then I just fully let go and I was full on just dancing and having the time of my life. It's making me happy just thinking about it. And I remember in that moment, I was like, man, something just released in me. I don't know what it was, but something just released in me. And I feel like it had just been so long since I had just let go of this, crazy, hardworking, work, hustle, kill mentality, which has gotten me to where I'm at, which is great. But I really needed to make time for this in my life because it allowed this different side of me to come out. And that's the thing, is we all have so many different aspects and, personalities and characteristic traits and things that sometimes we don't allow the space for those things to come out. So I want you to think about your life and the people and your work environment, everything, your environment in general. It allows a certain version of you to come out. And if you'll be brave enough to put yourself in new and in different environments, different things will come out of you, things that maybe you didn't even know were there. And so I really encourage you to, change up your environment, get in those different situations, because you may, if you're having a creative block, chances are you're just in that like masculine energy too much, which just means you need to incorporate some more of the feminine energy, like singing or dancing. And it doesn't have to be that. It could be artwork. It could be, music. It could be just playing with a child, with a kid, with a niece or a nephew. It could be any of those things. And okay, so I'm trying to wrap up here because I need to be done in a few minutes. But the last thing that I wanted to read to you guys is actually from the Bible in Proverbs 12. I'm using the Passion Translation. I love Proverbs because I really seek to cultivate wisdom in my life. I want to have wisdom. I want to have understanding. I don't just want to know things on a head level. I want to know them in my soul level. And Proverbs is full of just so much wisdom. They, contrast wisdom with foolishness. And, regardless of what you believe, you can read this and be like, yeah, that actually sounds like that's probably true, So this one says, it's 12:2, Proverbs 12:2. If your heart is right, favor flows from the Lord, but a devious heart invites his condemnation. You can't expect success by doing what's wrong. And I always say, it's always the right thing to do the right thing. So even in the smallest things, just ask yourself, when you're trying to make a decision, ask yourself, what is the right thing to do? Not what is justified by yourself or by, everyone else around you, but what is the right thing to do? I think about even, when people have asked for a refund of a program or something that I didn't have to do, I would just ask myself, what is the right thing to do in this scenario? Sometimes it's to stick to your guns and to hold clear with the way that you operate your business. And other times it's to go ahead and give the refund or to go ahead and do this or that. So ask yourself, what is the right thing to do? It says, the integrity and strength of a virtuous wife transforms her husband into an honored king, but the wife who disgraces her husband weakens the strength of his identity. This just shows how powerful a wife can be in her husband's life. You literally have the power to transform your husband into an honored king, or you can disgrace him. So I think it's so important to understand that our words have power. The way that we show up for other people have power, and you can either speak life into them or you can speak death into them. So with your significant other, ask yourself, are my words life-giving or are they the opposite of that? And it's really no in between. It's really one or the other. Either you're always speaking life and encouragement and truth in love to them, or you're doing the opposite. And so I think asking yourself that question can help you maybe next time that they upset you or annoy you or whatever it is, you can just hold your tongue a little bit, because you'll realize, I only want to speak life into them. I really want to help their transformation and their own journey. So I'm going to be so careful about what I speak into their lives. This next one says, a fool is in love with his own opinion, but wisdom means being teachable. That's so, so important. I think it's so important to always have that teachable attitude to, be strong enough to stand in your convictions and stand in what you believe to be true, but humble enough to know maybe you're wrong and that maybe you come to a new revelation. This next one says, hard work brings blessings back to you. And so these are really simple things at surface level, right? At surface level, you're like, okay, yeah, well, duh. But then if you look at your actions, you'll find different ways, because, there's so much that it talks about. It talks about, following a get-rich-quick scheme is nothing but a fantasy, right? It talks about work hard at your job and you'll have all you need. It talks about the cravings of the wicked only crave what is evil. and how the lovers of God are content and flourishing. And it's like when you see these things at a surface level, they seem pretty simple, but then you'll come to an area of your life where you're like, oh, if I'm being honest, my actions actually identify with the foolish, version that's contrasted with the wise version. And then it's up to you. You get that opportunity to say, you know what? I want to choose the wise path in my life. And I'll tell you what, guys, I have a lot of personal experience that relates to the things in here. And it's so funny because there's so many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's true. Because I've walked that out in my life. I've done both options. And like the wise path is the better path. I've already done that. So yeah, those are just some of the things that I felt I wanted to share on my heart with you guys today. I really hope that today's episode brought something positive, encouraging, and life-giving to your life. That's why I do these podcasts, and that's why I'm placing such an emphasis and importance on my podcast right now, because I think we need people speaking life and encouragement into other people. So maybe not everything was for you. That's okay. You can just kind of throw it in the trash. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Maybe it's for somebody else. But hopefully one thing spoke to you. I would just ask that if this podcast episode was beneficial to you in any way, then do me a favor and support the show any way that you would like. There's multiple ways to support, either through the links down below, or you can share it on your Instagram story. You can make sure that you're subscribed. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple iTunes. However you want to do it is just so appreciated. So from Vinny and I, Vinny, say hello. Can you sniff into the microphone? Vinny says he loves you guys. Everyone have a great day. I hope you have the best day, and I'll see you in the next episode of Evolve with Emily.